Hi Verbling, my name's Michaela. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and today we're talking about conditionals. We'll be going over 3 main types of conditionals. I'm talking about a 4th one, maybe, if we have time. If you guys are interested in booking private sessions with me, you can always send me a message on my Verbling inbox or talk to me about it during class. I know there's a special going on for Thanksgiving, so take advantage. And I'm going to screen share the notes so we can start. So conditionals. We'll be starting with a quick grammar review of each of the types, and then we'll see lots of examples of them and make our own examples as well. Conditional sentences consist of 2 parts, the dependent or subordinate if clause and the main will clause. So we've got the will clause and the subordinate if clause. And that's all one thing. And we'll conjugate them differently, so it's important to know which is which. Type 1 conditional, the dependent if clause usually indicates a real or possible situation that can happen in the present or in the future. And the main will clause expresses the result of the condition. Conditional sentence type 1 is often called the real conditional because it's used for real or possible situations. These situations take place if a certain condition is met. Eunice, welcome to class.
Hello, Michaela. Michaela?
How are you doing today? Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm fine too.
Eunice, to start us off, will you tell us what you already know about conditionals?
Well, conditionals mean that you need to oops. So you have to oh, I forgot the word, sorry. But okay, you have some conditions to be met.
Uh-huh.
And then you have results if those conditions are met.
Yeah, exactly. That's just what we were talking about with the subordinate clause and the main clause. I just read about type 1 conditionals and what those are, and in a second, after I welcome the rest of the class, I'll have you continue reading for us. Vislav, welcome to class. Vislav, will you share with us what you think it's important for students to remember when learning about the conditionals and when trying to make conditional sentences? Vislav, I can't hear you. You might want to try reloading. Sometimes that frequently has been the issue for me recently. I load up and there's no sound, and I have to reload.
Hello?
Hey! We can hear you now.
Okay, thank
Welcome
you.
to class. How are you?
I didn't hear. Thank you, I'm very well. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well myself. No computer problems today, so I can't complain.
Yeah.
So, Vislav, what's important to remember when students are practicing with the conditionals?
I don't know. Maybe you have 3 types of conditional.
Uh-huh.
Or 2, if I see.
Well, right here we have two, but there are more. So tell us what you know about the three types of conditionals.
What I know, the first conditional is the probability. For example, if I will have money, I go to London.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is, I don't know how to say, how to talk in English. It's in dreaming is only if I would be young, I could jump 10-meter high, for example.
Okay, so there's a slight mistake in that one, but that is a pretty good example of something that's not, it's a good example of something that's not very likely. And since that's where we're starting, because I already read type 1, Vislav, will you start for us and read a little bit about the definition of type 2 conditionals right in the middle of the screen there?
Okay, type 1. The dependent if clause usually indicates a real of possible situation that can happen in the present or in the future, and the main will clause express the result of the condition. Conditional sentence type 1 is often called the real conditional because it is used for real or possible situations. These situations take place if a certain condition is met.
Awesome, thanks. So that was about type 1 that you just read. And let's have Eunice read about type 2 and the note below.
Type 2, the dependent if indicates a situation that is possible but very unlikely to occur, and the main will clause expresses the result of the conditions. Note, in if clauses type 2, we usually use were, even if the pronoun is I, he, she, or it. Example, if I were you, I would not do this.
All right, so that one I want to talk a little bit more about, but welcome to class, Claudio.
Hi, teacher. Thank you.
Good to have you with us, Claudio. Do you have any tips for people who are learning conditionals the first time about what's important to remember?
No, I don't know what is conditional.
All right, well, we'll learn plenty of tips today, so hopefully at the end of class you'll know. So the note below type 2 is a little bit unusual and irregular. Usually I would say she was or he was, but with conditional type 2, you usually will not say that. If you're using it formally or in the more traditional way, you'll say, if I were you, if she were you, if it were you, you're going to say were all the time, no matter the pronoun. However, if you do forget and use was, it's okay because that's something that native speakers also do. I frequently will say, if I was you, or if she was you, but it sounds a little bit less formal. So it's important to keep in mind so you know what register, how formally you're speaking, but it's also not a huge mistake. People will still understand you and it's still a totally fine sentence, it just changes whether you're speaking formally and traditionally or a little bit what's considered to be less correct and sort of informally. Ken, welcome to class.
Yes, thank you. Hello.
Hey Ken, so do you have any tips for people who are studying conditionals for the first time?
Oh, yeah, this be verb is very distinctive. If I were.
Yeah. Is that hard to remember, or did you find it hard to remember when you were first
since
learning?
it is distinctive, so I remember it very easily, but sometimes it's very confusing. In the spoken English level, people say if I was. So
Yeah.
but a lot of grammar books said if I were you, only the if I were you is correct. But I think I don't know, but actually if I was you also mostly used nowadays in English.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can see the evolution of English a little bit. And even though technically were is the only super grammatically correct, like if you look at an English textbook, you're probably only going to find if I were you, not if I was you. But sometimes we have to make a distinction between the rules that are talked about in English grammar books and also the practical way that English is spoken, because a lot of native speakers speak in a way that is technically incorrect, but it's the traditional or common way to say something. So it just depends on what you want. Do you want to sound more like a native speaker, or do you want to sound like you're reading from a textbook? Depends on the formality of the situation and lots of other little details like that. But both, I think, are correct in particular circumstances. Depends on the circumstance. And that's a really good note. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Okay. So let's keep reading. We've got one more type to read about before we start to look at some examples. Type 3, it's Claudio's turn to read. Can you read about type 3 for us?
Yes. Type 3, this refers to situation in the past. An action could have happened in the past if a certain condition had been fulfilled. Things were different then. However, we just imagine what would have happened in the situation had been fulfilled.
So, if we were reviewing all of what we just read, we could basically condense it down to this tiny little chart that lets you know when you're going to need one or the other. So if you're trying to make a conditional sentence and you're not sure which type of conditional you'll need, you can decide based on choosing one of these moods to use. So type number 1 is the conditional is possible to fulfill. So it's something that's still possible for the present or future. Number 2 is a condition that's in theory possible to fulfill, but not very likely. So if you're trying to say something is doubtful or not likely, you'll use type number 2. Type number 3 is a condition not possible to fulfill at all because it's too late. So it's never going to happen. It's already passed. Do you guys have any questions on type 1, 2, or 3? Cool. Then let's move down to the form, how we actually make them. And Ken, will you read the form for type 1, 2, and 3?
There is type 1, simple present, in if clause, simple present, main clause, will, future, or modal plus infinitive. Type 2, if clause, simple past, main clause, would plus infinitive. Type 3, if clause, past perfect, main clause, would plus have plus past participle.
Thanks. And you'll notice that there's an asterisk there on type 2 and type 3. And that relates to this note all the way below, where we talk a little bit about substituting other modal verbs. And that works for type 1 as well. So type 1 could be a modal verb plus an infinitive or the will future. So all of those could use different modal verbs. You could substitute could or should instead of would. Depends on what you're trying to say. And we'll practice with that in a minute. So let's look at some examples. And these are all color-coded. So if you look back up, you'll see that the red is always simple present. The green is always simple past. So examples, let's have Vislav read the examples for us.
The type 1, I will pass the exam. No, that's not. The example, this in table 2, I think, yes?
No, these examples, the ones that you started reading, these ones
this
right
one,
here.
okay. I will pass the exam if I study. The types 2, I would pass the exam if I studied. And types 3, I would have passed the exam if I had studied.
Thanks. So these are pretty much the most standard versions, and you could exchange the verbs for any other verbs in the same tense, and it would still be a correct sentence. But if we wanted to, we could change these around a little bit and say something like, I could pass the exam if I study. So you can change that will to a different modal if you want. And you can also change the would to a different modal if you want. I should have passed the exam for this one. I should have passed the exam if I had studied, or something like that. You can change those modals around a little bit. Okay, we've got one more chart with more examples, just with affirmatives and negatives to make sure that you all get it. I don't think we're going to read through these because they're the same as what we've already seen. But if you guys do have questions on them, you can read through them and ask. So let's look at some of these modals a little bit more. Let's have Eunice read this note for us.
We can substitute could or might for would. Thus it should, may, or must are sometimes possible too. I would pass the exam, I could pass the exam, I might pass the exam, I may pass the exam, I should pass the exam, I must pass the exam.
Awesome. Thanks. Do you guys have any different questions on the differences between these modal verbs?
What is the difference between might and may?
Might and may actually have just a very subtle difference, and most of it is just on the context in which they're used. Might is a lot more common in American English, except for when we're talking about permission. You would say, may I go to the bathroom? May I have a seat? Not might. Might would sound a little bit funny. And there are some differences between British English and American English in this sense. I think might is just the same. But for the most part, in American English, we use might more frequently, but with permission, we'll use may instead.
Okay.
Other than that, they have basically the same meaning as far as likelihood and possibility. They're matched. Any other questions on these? Let's do a little bit of review. Claudio, what's the difference between something like would and could?
Between would and could? That the possibility or the ability to do something could be?
Yeah, so if I said I could pass the exam, what's the difference between that and I would pass the exam?
That could is happened and would is a possibility now.
Okay, so they both could possibly be talking about the present, the past, or the future, depending on how we use them and which conditional we're looking at. But you're right, you said something about ability earlier, and could talks more about ability. So if I say I could pass the exam, I'm saying I'm able to pass the exam. If I'm saying I would pass the exam, it's a little bit more standard probability, but also could say something about your desire. Like, I would go to the party, but I have a class at that time, so I can't. So you're saying I want to go to the party, but it's just not possible. Instead of saying I could go to the party, that you're saying I'm able to go to the party, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on unless you guys have more questions. I encourage you to try out some of these modal verbs instead of would while we're working, so we can talk a little bit more about what's possible and what's not possible, or just what doesn't sound very common or correct. Okay. So let's try some type 1 conditionals. This is a tough exercise because we don't actually have the verbs here, so you guys have to get creative. You have to read the sentence and then decide what verb first would fit in the blank, and then you have to conjugate that verb. So you have to do two jobs here. You have to pick a verb of all the verbs in the English language, and then you have to conjugate that verb. And as a quick review, type 1 is going to be simple present in the if clause and will plus the future in the main clause. So We're starting with an if clause, although we won't always start with an if clause. And let's have Ken start us off. Can you do the first sentence for us, deciding what verbs go in the blank and conjugating them up for us?
If Caroline and Sue offered the salad, offered, am I correct? No, not offered. If offers the salad.
So if they offers?
Yeah.
With an S at the end of offer?
No, sorry. Offer the salad. Phil will come back to the house.
Awesome. You got creative. So if Caroline and Sue offer the salad, Phil will come back to the house. So he used a phrasal verb in the second blank and offer in the first blank. Okay, number 2, Vislav.
If Sue buy the onions for the salad, Caroline will buy the mushrooms.
Awesome. And I like the way you conjugated it, but what did you say for the first blank? If Sue...
Buy.
Without an S?
Sorry? Wait.
Well, you said if Sue buy, right?
Buy.
But in the third person singular, we need an S on the end of that verb. So if Sue buys.
It's the third. Okay. Sorry. Of course.
Awesome. Thank you, Vislav. Number 3, Eunice.
Jane will clean the sitting room if Aaron and Tim. Okay, Jane will set up the sitting room if Aaron and Tim bring the furniture.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, Eunice. Number 4, Claudio.
If Bob cleans up the kitchen, Anita will clean the toilet.
Okay. Good job. Nicely done. And number 5, back to Ken.
Okay, Elaine will buy the drinks. Makes sense.
Could be.
If somebody offers her carry the bottles.
Okay. Possibly. Usually offer isn't one that would take an object right like that, like her, but that's possible.
Okay.
All right. We'll go on to type number 2, and as a review, we use the simple past for the if clause and would plus infinitive for the main clause. And type number 2 is something that's possible but less likely. And if you guys have trouble coming up with the appropriate verbs here, you can always just give a shout out and we'll help you come up with a verb that would work for you to conjugate. Vislav, we're going with you for number 1.
Okay. I would invite all my friends if I rent a house by the beach.
If I what? Rent,
yes, a house by the beach.
So the first blank was perfect. The second blank should be conjugated in the simple past.
The first one, prefer.
So you said rent, which is in the present. How can we make that in the simple past?
Rented?
Yeah, perfect. I would invite all my friends if I rented a house by the beach. Awesome. Eunice, will you do number 2?
Yes. I would I got taken my friends up in my yacht if they decided to spend their holidays on my island.
The second blank is perfect. Will you say the first blank again?
I would take my friends up in my yacht. Okay.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks, Eunice. Number 4. Oh, no, sorry. Number 3, Claudio.
Yeah. We will go Great Paris if my friends lived into my island.
Okay, so you said we would go to great parties if my friends said lived?
Lived? Uh-huh.
Yeah. We would have to change the sentence a little bit to say lived on my island instead of to my island, but the conjugation and the verb choice is great. So we would just have to alter the sentence a little bit to fit your verbs better. That's a good sentence.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, number 4, Ken.
If we were, no, if we had enough money to go shopping in a big city, we would rent a helicopter.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you, Ken. Number 5, we're back to Vislav.
But if my friend's holidays went over, I would be very lonely on my lonely island.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So the tense was right for the if clause blank, but the verb is a little bit funny. If my friend's holidays went over. The best verb here, I think, is the verb to be conjugated in the past. So what would that look like?
But if my friend's holidays were over.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Vislav. Okay, we're going down to type number 3, the toughest type. And let's review really quick. We're going to use the past perfect in the if clause and would plus have plus the participle in the main clause. All right. Number 1, Eunice. And again, if you guys need help choosing the verbs, let me know, because this set is about sports and it used sort of specific kind of verbs.
Okay. If the midfielders would no. If the midfielders have if the midfielders had passed the ball more exactly, our team would have won.
Okay, perfect. That would work. If the midfielders had passed the ball more exactly, our team would have won. And there's another little piece here, but the way you wrote it is perfect. The way you wrote it is fine too.
Yes, sorry.
All right, number 2, Claudio.
Yes, if the forwards, I think The forwards had run faster. They would have. Oh no, I think they would have get more goals or the ball.
Yeah, but get is not a participle.
Gotten.
Yeah. Perfect. Read the whole thing again for us.
If the forwards had run faster, they would have gotten more goals.
Excellent. Thank you. Ken, number 3.
Their motivation would have been higher if they achieved if they had achieved the goal during the first half.
Excellent. Perfect sentence. Thanks, Ken. Number 4, Vislav.
Sorry, what does mean fullback?
Fullbacks is a position in American football. It's like the quarterback, but a different position. So quarterback is like a more famous term, right?
It's terrible. The fullbacks. If the fullbacks would the fullbacks the fullback would scored one or the other goal if they I don't know.
So you're close with the first one. What did you say would scored? Is that what you said?
Would score.
You're missing a little bit. So because this is the third, it should be would have scored. Would plus
the fullbacks would have scored one or the other goal if they
and then the past perfect for this blank.
if they won. No.
Past perfect?
If they have won.
That's still the present perfect. We need the past perfect.
If they the past for from win is to won.
The past perfect means you need the verb to have in the simple past plus the participle.
If they would no, sorry.
Okay, so it's going to be had plus the participle of whatever verb.
If they had been won.
If they had what? Yeah, okay, so it could be had won if we didn't have the rest of this. So then if we were just reading this part, it would say the fullbacks would have scored, I think you said, right? So the fullbacks would have scored one or the other goal if they had won. Now this is kind of a funny sentence because it's a little bit backwards. Like obviously the scoring has to come before the winning. So it's a little bit funny, but the conjugation is perfect. Now if we change that verb to something else like block, we could read the sentence like this. The fullbacks would have scored one or the other goal if they had blocked their opponents.
They have blocked.
Cool. All right, Eunice, you're up next. It's the last one, number 5.
Okay. If the goalie have gotten up, he would had catch the ball.
Okay. If the goalie had gotten up, he would have caught the ball.
Catch.
Yeah, a little bit irregular for that one, but good job. All right, guys, questions? I think you did an excellent job on all three of these types of conditionals. I know it's kind of like a brain exercise. You got to think through it a lot at first. It becomes a little bit more routine once you've done it again and again and again. But you guys did a good job. So let's go over, we're going to go over just a little bit of conversation questions using some conditionals. And then we're going to learn one more kind of conditional if we have time today. And it's the zero conditional, but it's super easy. So it'll be a nice, easy way to end our class. First conversation question, and remember you guys are going to try to answer in the conditional. If you could go visit a famous person, who would it be? So if you could go visit a famous person, who would it be? Claudio, using conditional sentences, if you could go visit a famous person, who would it be?
All right. In that case, I use the first of the second.
Well, it depends. Do you think it's likely to happen or not likely to happen?
Okay. So okay, if I I don't know, I visit a famous player. If I will pay a ticket to know them,
Okay.
please.
Yeah. So I would go visit a famous player if I bought a ticket. Okay, perfect. What player do you think it would be? Do you have a favorite sports player?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah, maybe Lionel Messi.
Ooh, wow. That would be a cool visit.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen him play before?
No, only I watch it on TV.
Yeah. I bet those tickets are expensive.
Yeah, in Mexico, like $100. So I prefer watching on TV. Yeah.
And he probably doesn't come there very frequently, maybe just a few times a year, right?
Yeah, he came to Mexico versus Argentina, but only played like 20 minutes at the last part of the game.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What a shame. Thanks, Claudio.
Welcome.
Ken, who would you go visit?
I don't know. But most likely, if I could go visit a famous person, I would meet the internet broadcaster, popular internet broadcaster on the street.
Ooh, that would be cool. Would you like to talk to him about anything in particular?
Yes, actually, yeah, recently I met him, and because he's walking this area to Hiroshima now, so he came close to my area. How can I say? At that time, I was in a shopping mall and I was watching his broadcasting on the internet. So I went out to meet him.
Wow, that's so cool. So this actually happened.
Yes, so it's not conditional, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It's an interesting experience, though. So
Yeah.
did you get to ask him any questions?
Kind of, he's selling his sticker to, collect money for his travel. So
And did you buy a sticker?
Yeah.
Very cool. Way to support someone you appreciate.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
You're welcome.
Vislav, who would you go visit if you got an opportunity? Vislav, are you there? All right, I don't hear you, Vislav. You're muted. So let's go to Eunice. Who would you go visit if you had an opportunity to go visit a famous person?
Mm, um, I go to visit. Um, I'm sorry, I don't understand what comes after if in that sentence. So if I need to repeat if I could go visit.
No, you don't necessarily have to. So you can say, I would go visit Orlando
Okay.
Bloom if I got the opportunity because he's super good looking or whatever.
Okay. So if I had the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
I could go to visit to um, a famous American film director um, because I would like to talk about his movies.
Cool. Like what movies? What director?
I would go visit Tarantino.
Whoa, that would be cool. Do you have a favorite Tarantino movie?
Um, yeah, well, Pulp Fiction, I really like.
Yeah, that's a classic one. I love that movie too. All right. Thanks, Eunice. Let's go on to the next one. If you owned a store, what would it sell? Claudio? What do you think? If you owned a store, what would it sell?
If I own a store, I will sell education program, maybe.
It would sell education programs?
Yeah.
Interesting choice. Like what kind of education?
Yeah, like a sport program, maybe at the school.
That
Like
would be so cool.
yeah, yeah, or something related to educational involve kids in the beginner age, like 2 to I don't know, 10 years old.
Ah, perfect. It would be really rewarding then.
Yeah, I think yeah, develop program like the that classes that I teach. I think maybe I can sell something about that.
Awesome. All right, Ken, if you owned a store, what would it sell?
Mm, I don't know. But about a smoothie, I went to the really good smoothie shop in America, so I don't think there's no such a good smoothie store here. So I would, if I owned a store, I would sell smoothie.
There's an opening in the market.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. And Eunice, if you owned a store, what would it sell?
If I own a store, I would sell clothing. Um, yeah.
Groceries?
Clothings.
Oh,
Clothing.
clothing. Like what kind of
Clothing.
clothing?
What kind of clothing?
Yeah.
I guess women clothing. So I can change every time I want to.
So it would be like your extended closet.
Right.
And would you sell to men and children as well?
uh, Maybe to men, not children. I think it should be another different store for that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Claudio? Oh, no, you already did that one. Okay. So we've got one more, and this one's a little bit different from the other two. What would you have bought if you had been a millionaire? So what kind of conditional will we use to answer this one?
I think in that case the third conditional.
Yeah, exactly.
In that case, if I had, oh, if I had earned money, I would have bought a company,
What kind of company?
a school,
A school,
educational school, yeah, like a kindergarten,
like a private
primary,
school?
yeah, primary school, yeah.
But a private one?
Primary, I don't know in English how the
No, I mean
levels.
private, like not a public school, but a
No,
private school.
private elementary school, yeah.
Very cool. For like gifted children or sportsy children or just all kinds of children.
Yeah, combine all the like the program, sport, program, and musician and musical. Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks, Claudio.
Welcome.
Ken, what would you have bought if you had been a millionaire?
Yes, if I had been a millionaire, I would have bought a hybrid car.
A hybrid car?
Yeah,
What do you drive now?
I drive an eco car, not a hybrid car,
Ah.
just an ordinary eco car. Eco car is English?
I've heard the term before. I'm not very
Okay.
familiar with cars, but I've heard that term before.
Okay. Eco car.
If you were a millionaire, you could probably afford to buy maybe even more than one. And also, I would pronounce that eco, not
eco
echo.
car. Okay.
Yeah, because echo to me makes it sound like this. Wait. An echo is
Okay.
hello, hello, hello.
That's short of what? Ecology or economy?
Yeah, probably economical or economical, I guess.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. Eunice, if you had been a millionaire, what would you have bought?
If I had been a millionaire, I could have bought a big house.
A big house?
Mm-hmm.
Like a mansion?
Not a mansion, just a big house.
Where would it be? Would it be the same place you currently live, or would you move to like the beach or Hollywood or something?
I guess I would move to some place that has a nice weather. Not necessarily in the beach, but yeah, maybe where is a nice weather.
Well, then what would you do with all your winter clothes?
I would still use them because I would travel a lot too.
Ah, good idea. You'll still travel for skiing and all that kind of stuff, huh? Okay. So before I go over type 0, which is going to be a quick little note, let's try this because we didn't really get to practice this much. So I want you guys to write a type 2, get creative, and write your own type 2 conditional sentence. And then put one with were and one with was. That way we can kind of see the difference. So try to use he, she, I, it. Yeah, he, she, I, or it. Not they, because we wouldn't use was with they. That would be really incorrect, very informal. And when you're ready, put it in the chat box, and we'll talk about the difference a little bit more. Cool, we already have one. If I were an American, I would speak English fluently. Ken, tell us when you might use this sentence and when you might use the counterpart, which is if I was American, I would speak English fluently.
Counterpart of if I was.
Yeah, so who would you use the more formal, more traditional version? If you were speaking to someone, when would you want to use the were version and when would you want to use the was version?
Okay, maybe in a public speech, I would say if I were, but if I talk to my friend or someone who are close to me, I would say if I was an American.
Yeah, exactly. So in casual conversation, was is more common, but in a speech, you might want to be more formal. All right, Eunice, do you have a sentence ready? How about Claudio? Do you have a sentence ready?
Yeah, I put in the chat box.
I don't see it. Oh, here it is. Well, no. I see Eunice's sentence. All right, Eunice, go for it. Your sentence is, if he was younger, he would change his career. So who are you talking to? Who are you imagining is your audience if you say, if he was younger, he would change his career?
Who I'm talking to?
Yeah, I mean, would you be talking to the president? Would you be talking to your brother?
Okay. Yeah, it's really familiar, so I would use was because I'm talking about maybe another person or another friend. So it's informal, right?
Yeah, informal, exactly. And Claudio, I imagine you're Maximo in the chat box?
Yeah.
Okay. So I like your sentence. If I were you, I wouldn't go out with, I wouldn't go out with that man. You're giving a little bit of advice here. Now, who are you giving advice to?
To my friends, for my friends.
Okay. Is it a friend you know very well, or is it a friend maybe that you just met, or someone maybe from school? So
A friend that I met, I knew very well. It's like
so the advice is a good example of advice you'd give to someone that you know really well. And there's nothing wrong with the way that you wrote it, but the less formal version, meaning more intimate, a little bit more casual, would be, if I was you, I wouldn't go out with that man. So if I were talking to a close friend, I would probably say, oh, if I was you, I would do this or wouldn't do that. And if I were talking to someone that I maybe knew less well, then I would use the word.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a break. We covered all the notes pretty well. We're going to go over the zero conditional. Does anyone know the zero conditional already?
Not sure.
So we've got type 1, type 2, type 3. These are the common ones that people go over. But there's one more type of conditional that it's conditional in form, in structure, even though it's not exactly the same idea, but it's really easy to make, and it's called the zero conditional. So this is something that's generally true in all circumstances, or some kind of general truth. You can say, if he gets there before me, ask him to wait. So in that case, it's actually like, it's got a condition that needs to be satisfied, but you're giving a direction as well. So in this case, we're using the imperative in with a conditional. If he gets there before me, ask him to wait. Or you can use it to give some kind of pointer or tip for traveling. When you fly budget airline, you have to pay for your drinks and snacks. When you fly budget airlines, you have to pay for your drinks and snacks. So I'll put these two examples in the chat box. And you guys can take a look and make your own version. So in the first one, we've got the simple present and the imperative. In the second one, the simple present and the simple present. You have to pay. We're using a modal, but still simple present. Okay, Eunice, can you give me another example of the zero conditional?
If it gets colder, I will go home immediately.
Okay, you still used will, so that kind of
Okay,
makes it a little more like type 1, but you could use that, you could say something like, if it gets cold, I'm going home.
Okay. Okay.
So that's a general truth. You're saying like, no way am I staying if it gets cold.
Right.
If it gets cold, I'm going home. And that's a good example because that uses the progressive, which is something that we haven't experimented with yet, but is possible in the zero conditional. Claudio, can you give us a zero conditional sentence?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if that's correct. If I eat too much, I get sick of stomach or something. And if I drink, I never drive.
Perfect. Those are both great examples.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claudio. Ken, can you give us another one?
Okay, if you don't want to miss the train, hurry up.
Definitely. If you don't want to miss the train, hurry up. So you use an imperative one. Awesome. All right, guys, questions or comments before we finish up? Thank you guys so much for coming, and I'm doing my next class. It's more conversational about airports and airport security. And I hope to see you guys there, or in a future class anyways. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.